A gaunt man in an apron, smelling of tobacco and flour, placed a plate on the table. The edges were slightly chipped, but the generously peppered omelet and golden brown toast looked like a tender act of care, long forgotten by me. That's exactly how he used to cook for me in the mornings when I was in school, when the world was simpler. Now, I sat at his table while he quietly stirred his coffee, his eyes glued to his phone. I tried not to read into it, but something in my chest tightened. "I'll only be gone for a couple of days," I said, sliding into the chair across from him. "Just a small contract at the plant, and on Monday I start the new job." He only nodded, still looking at the screen. "That's great, son." His voice sounded like a reflex, a mere formality. His eyes never left the phone, not even when I smiled. "I know it's not a big company like Maroch was, but it's a stable salary, full benefits. I'll finally be able to pay off the last of what I owe you." The only response was a distracted hum. He typed something on his phone and tilted the screen away from me. I focused on my plate, trying to swallow not just the food, but the bitter feeling of resentment. "Don't make it weird," I told myself. "He let you stay when you needed it. He didn't have to." When I stood up to rinse my plate, he quickly kissed my cheek and gave me an awkward side hug, as if we were actors on a stage performing for an audience that wasn't there. Then he went back to his phone. I returned home a few hours earlier than planned, around 6:30 a.m. The job had finished faster than expected, and all I wanted was to get into bed and fall asleep. But as I slowed down in front of the house, I saw them. Black garbage bags, dozens of them, lined up along the edge of the lawn. Some were torn open, spilling socks, sweaters, notebooks, and even my welding gloves onto the patchy grass. My computer monitor was propped crookedly against the mailbox, unwrapped, exposed, and a testament to my absurd fate. And standing next to the bags was my mother. She was holding her phone as if filming a cooking demo. Beside her, my younger sister, Alice, had her arm outstretched in a selfie pose, giving her followers a full view of the spectacle. I could hear her voice before I even got out of the car. And there she is, back from another business trip and still owing $8,000 in rent. Watch closely, folks. This is what entitlement looks like. My brother, Kirill, was pacing back and forth like a bouncer with nowhere to go. When he saw me, he smirked, walked up to one of the bags and kicked it hard enough to send my books skidding into the dirt. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. My chest felt like someone had flipped a switch and drained all the air. My mother raised her phone and narrated, her voice polished and performative. "Alex Renoff, 29, living in my basement like a parasite for months. No more. This is your eviction notice. Public and permanent." I slowly bent down, picking up the hardcover book that had slid from the bag. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I just kept loading my belongings into the car, one piece at a time, while Alice's voice rang out behind me, narrating my every move as if it were her job. I gently closed the trunk and turned around one last time. They were still filming, still grinning. I had just closed the car door when I heard the front door slam open. My father marched down the steps, his face red and jaw clenched, and without a word, he flung a set of keys toward me. They hit the side of my cheek with a dull thud and landed in the gravel. "Take your junk and get out," he barked. "You're not our son anymore. Real adults don't sponge off their parents at your age." I blinked, rubbed my cheek where the keys had struck, then leaned down to pick them up. I didn't flinch, not in front of him. I opened the car door, climbed in, and shut it with deliberate quiet. Before starting the engine, I looked through the window at all three of them. My mother with her rehearsed indifference, Alice with her manufactured disgust, Kirill with his practiced cruelty. Then I looked at my father. He didn't break eye contact, but something flickered in his eyes, confusion perhaps, when I didn't break mine either. I drove aimlessly for a while. It wasn't until I reached Elena's apartment, her porch light still on, that I remembered the envelope. It had been sitting at the bottom of my filing bin for a year. Thick paper, no return address, just my name in my grandfather's unmistakable handwriting. He had given it to me at the hospital a few weeks before he passed. He said, "Don't open it unless things get bad." I never thought I would need to, but now everything inside me said, "Open it." The letter was short. "Alex, if you're reading this, it means they've done what I feared. I couldn't protect you from them while I was alive, so I'm doing it now. I've placed a portion of the house, the lake cabin, and the workshop building in your name. It's all legal, all documented. You don't owe them anything. Not apologies, not silence, not guilt. This is for when they forget what you're worth. Grandpa." The documents backed it all up. A living trust. My name was listed next to percentages. 40% of the family home, 50% of a lake cabin, and 35% of the commercial building where my father's business operated. The business card at the bottom read, "Arthur Dorsey, Estate and Property Law." The next morning I called. His receptionist hesitated until I mentioned my grandfather's name, then offered me a last-minute slot that afternoon. He remembered me immediately. He said, "You used to come with him to meetings. Always brought that little red sketchbook." I nodded. He reviewed the documents carefully, flipping through them with the kind of precision that only decades of practice can build. When he looked up, his expression was unreadable, but his voice was firm. "It's all valid. The trust was finalized before your grandfather passed. They can't legally remove you, sell without your consent, or claim ignorance. If they've been collecting rent or taking out loans against any of these properties, they may have a bigger problem than they realize." The first text came that night. "Alice, 8:47 p.m. I didn't answer. By morning, there were 12 more messages, 2 missed calls from Mom, and a voicemail from Kirill. "You're overreacting. It wasn't even that serious. You know how she gets. Just come back and talk like an adult." I forwarded everything to Mr. Dorsey. By midday, Dad's number lit up my screen. "Dad, 1:14 p.m. We need you to sign a few things. No drama, just paperwork. No explanation, no apology, just instructions as if I were an employee who had missed a deadline." Mr. Dorsey responded on my behalf with a brief, formal notice that all future communication should go through his office. He CC'd their family lawyer. I turned read receipts off and let the silence do the work. My phone was still vibrating every few days. Alice's voice memos, Kirill's passive-aggressive guilt, Dad's insistence. I turned the phone face down and let it buzz into the mattress. They were loud. They had always been loud. But this time, my silence said more than their shouting ever could. Mr. Dorsey called 2 days later, his voice calm but clipped. "He's finished reviewing the income history on the properties. Your parents and brother have been collecting rent from the lake cabin and the commercial property, none of it disclosed to me." I closed my eyes. Just over $50,000, 3 years of tenant payments. My share wasn't even acknowledged. By the end of the day, certified letters had gone out to their family's legal representative, outlining the exact amount owing and my ownership percentages. Mr. Dorsey had also contacted the banks involved with the business loans tied to the commercial property. If they had approved financing without all stakeholders' signatures, they were at risk too. The silence that followed was different this time. Not stunned, not wounded, calculating. They came to me several times. I didn't open the door right away. I wanted them to sit in the discomfort, let it soak in. Dad knocked again, harder this time. "We are your family. You can't just shut us out over some paperwork." They stood there for another minute. Then they left, slowly and without a word. The next day I opened my laptop. Mr. Dorsey had just emailed me a new file marked "Initial Draft of Settlement Negotiation." The offer came 2 days later. Their attorney emailed Mr. Dorsey with a proposal that they would transfer full ownership of the lake cabin to me if I agreed to forego any claims on the back rent or future income from the commercial property. Mr. Dorsey didn't even hesitate. He rejected. The cabin was worth less than a third of what I was owed. They thought I'd take the bait, let them off the hook in exchange for peace and a symbolic hand-me-down. But I wasn't interested in symbolism. I wanted acknowledgement. I met with Mr. Dorsey the next morning and laid out what mattered to me: a formal payment plan for the back rent, a third-party property management company to handle all future income, and a written admission of financial misrepresentation. While negotiations crawled, their cracks began to show. Alice lost over 5,000 followers in a week. Dad's business took a hit too. Mom stopped texting. Kirill sent one angry email that Mr. Dorsey forwarded without comment. Alice tried calling twice. I didn't answer. When their lawyer finally responded, the tone had changed. Less aggressive, more careful. They agreed to everything. 2 days after I moved in, the envelope arrived. A check. The first installment of the back rent they owed. Paperclipped to it was a folded note written in my mother's handwriting. "We hope we can put this behind us and be a family again. Love, Mom." I stared at it for a long time, not because it moved me, but because of how much it didn't. There was no apology, no ownership, just a hope that I'd forget what it cost me for finally being left alone. I placed the check in my drawer. I didn't reply. No more shouting, no more silence to weaponize. It was a new beginning, a debt finally paid. But the moral question lingered, a quiet echo in the empty rooms of my mind. Did I win, or did I simply become as calculating as they were? I had fought for what was mine, but in doing so, I had severed the last thread of a family I once loved. Was it worth the price?